All right, folks, it is 6:01 p.m. My name is Jesse Moose. I'm the construction liaison for the city of Somerville. Welcome to our Powderhouse Boulevard, Alewife Brook Parkway intersection improvement project. A few people will be jumping on as we begin. I want to just make a note of saying that this meeting is being recorded. It will be uploaded to the project's website for future viewings. We are in Ward 7, as I think many of you know. I'd like to take a moment to give the floor to our Ward 7 City Councilor, Judy Pineda-Nayfield. I see you there. Nick, can you unmute Judy, say a few words? There she is.
Yep, Judy, you should be able to go ahead and unmute, Councilor.
Gotcha. Can you all hear me?
Of course.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, good evening. Thank you so much to the City of Somerville team, construction team, and project team on this. So thanks for organizing and putting this together. Excited to be a part of tonight and share this information out with folks in the ward as well. For those who don't know me, I'm Judy Pineda-Nayfield. I'm a city councilor here representing Ward 7. Really, really excited about this project. For those who may not have walked or rolled or biked or been around this intersection, it is sorely in need of improvement, which I think is the understatement of the evening. This design is going to go leaps and bounds to helping make it safer for everyone who lives, works, plays over in that area. So looking forward to tonight's conversation. Always happy to answer questions offline for any residents who have questions after this as well, and connect you to folks in the city. And I'll turn this back over to our webinar host tonight. Thank you again, Nick and Jesse and Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Councilor. So like we were saying, this is the Powderhouse Boulevard, Alewife Brook Parkway intersection improvement project, which we call the FAB project, PHB. So let's go over tonight's agenda. So you're going to meet the project team. You see the three of us on your left or right, depending on where you put your screen. We're going to talk about the design community engagement process that went before we actually engaged in construction, which is going to be starting this month. We're going to do a brief overview of the project as well as the construction timeline. This is a major intersection improvement project, so obviously there's going to be a traffic management plan involved with a detour. We're also going to talk about the coordination of this project with the Clarendon Hill public housing redevelopment and how projects kind of speak to each other. And then finally, at the end, we will answer any question you have related to the project. So let's meet us. You see the three of us. Rebecca Wright is a project manager. I am the construction liaison for the city of Somerville. I work in the infrastructure and asset management department, mostly on the engineering side. If there's construction going on in the city, I am involved in some capacity. And then also with us tonight is our construction public information officer, Nick Alewife. The contractor for this project is R.M. Pacella. This is their first project working in the city. We've been in conversation with them since November, and we've been very impressed by what they brought to the table. And then design, engineering, construction oversight is going to be done by Tetra Tech. So this project is as far west as you possibly can get in the city. So the limits of it are basically, so it's the intersection of Alewife Brook Parkway and Powderhouse Boulevard, but it'll run all the way to North Street as well. Let's talk about how we get to construction. So everything comes up, we have to have a plan or an idea. So we started kind of conceptualizing this back in late 2020. And then, we have an idea of what we want to do, but we obviously need to get, feedback and engage the community. So our mobility team, did a few pop-ups throughout, 2021, trying to get ideas of how best we could serve this community, and not just, the people who live and about this intersection, but people who really use this as a gateway to Arlington, or if you're coming from Arlington into the city. We had, a community meeting back July 21st, talking about design, and then the mobility team also did some informational pop-ups later in 2022. And finally, here we are today in February with our construction kickoff community meeting. And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Jesse. So I'm just gonna, before I get into the construction and design, go a little bit about why we're here tonight discussing this project. So this area was decided on because it is a high crash corridor. As you can see, between 2014 and 2021, we had 48 crashes. And so it's part of the Vision Zero Somerville. You can find out more about the Vision Zero Somerville online, but basically it's a plan to reduce and eliminate transportation fatalities. This project is an opportunity to improve safety for everyone. So mobility for all, that's pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and making sure that everyone has equal safety on this corridor. This is a collaboration between DCR and the city of Somerville. Alewife Brook Parkway is DCR owned and Powder House Boulevard is owned by the city. So it was actually a really great collaboration efforts between both entities, and what you'll see soon is what was decided upon by both DCR and the city of Somerville. This project is funded by the MassWorks grant. So this is not just city funded, we got state funding. So this is a really great opportunity for the city to get money from the state and improve our city streets. So the project includes a number of different key improvements, a new signalized intersection, sewer and storm drain rehab, mobility improvements, tree planting, and a new improved residential access roadway. So as you can see, this is the current condition, which is a rotary that can be kind of confusing for especially people not familiar with the area, or even if you are, it could be pretty hard to navigate. In the new concept will be what many of you have seen probably is this concept design, which is the new T-shaped plan. This is not 100% the latest design, so I'll be going over that in the next slide. So I'm really excited about this slide. I put a lot of time into it, and I hope it'll help clear up a little bit for everybody on this call. We have this new residential roadway, which is really a yield street, which is pretty common in the city of Somerville. You have to stop and pull over and yield for oncoming traffic and take turns. It is a dead end road for only emergency and service vehicles. So really the only people accessing this roadway are the residents on this road to get in and out of their driveways. This is supposed to be really just a safe, slower access residential road. So anybody exiting really is only for emergency and service vehicles. We have these chicanes, which is a traffic safety measure. It's kind of trying to make people slow down and take some turns rather than a straight shot. It's another safety measure, so people slow down on this residential shared street. And we have this raised crossing, which is for pedestrians. And so from the get-go entering this street, you slow down, and really if you think you're gonna bypass the traffic signal to get to Alewife Brook Parkway, you're really not saving any time. These safety measures are put into place to slow people down, and it's not a through street by any means. It's a safe residential shared street. We have the new traffic signal, like I mentioned. Protected bike lanes on Powder House Boulevard, one in each direction. They were both sidewalk level, so they are separate from the roadway and for motorists. And it connects to the community path on the other side of Alewife Brook Parkway. We have park benches as well as a sidewalk inside this little park. We have a rain garden that will collect any storm drain. This is a very shallow, about 2 foot deep rain garden. It collects the storm water, and yeah, that's about it about the rain garden. Koza monument will be maintained. I want to mention that this is known as Koza Circle, which is a memorial to the two Somerville brothers that were killed in World War II, and this monument will be maintained. And actually, I think we'll get a little bit more attention in this new location across from the park benches and alongside the walking path. So continuing down the other side of Powder House, I wanted to point out that the bike path continues on this side of Powder House as well, and then eliminates at North Street and is now at street level on North Street. But all of Powder House will be sidewalk level protected bike lanes. We have a new speed hump, which is also a new safety measure to slow traffic down. And we will have a few on-street parking spaces on this side of Powder House Boulevard. This is the tentative construction schedule. You might have already seen some trees be removed, some new tree protection take place this past January. Pretty soon they will be out there next week, starting with some test pits, some erosion control. And then in a couple of weeks, they will begin with their underground utility work, which will continue through the summer of 2023, this summer. And in the meantime, they will start to do some surface work, and that will be maintained throughout the entire duration of the project, which will hopefully end by summer 2024. Traffic signal work will begin this fall and be wrapped up around winter 2023, 2024, perhaps around this time next year. And like I said, project completion is summer 2024. So in order for some of these new utilities to be installed, we had to remove 6 trees, but that does not come without replanting quite a few new trees. We have 22 new trees planted with a number of different species, as well as all the trees out there that are protected will remain for the remainder of the project and for the life. So many of those mature trees have been kept and will remain. So this will be a great project for the environment and the park, and hopefully residents appreciate that. So there will be a 24/7 detour. It will begin in about 2 weeks and will go through the end of summer. The reason for the detour is many of these underground utilities are very deep, and in order for this project to be safe for both the construction crew as well as anybody traveling in this area, this detour has to be put into place. So southbound Alewife Brook Parkway cannot turn left onto Powder House. You'll have to follow Alewife Brook to Broadway, take a left, and then take a left onto North Street. I will add that at some point, Powder House Boulevard will be closed in both directions during the workday. That has not been approved at this time, so I can't tell you when that's going to start, but I just want you to be aware and anticipate that to come. And any residents and emergency vehicles during that closure will be able to access their houses or destination. If you live in that area, you just need to let either the contractor know, or if you spot the policeman, please let them know, but you will be able to access your home if the Powder House is closed during the construction day.
And as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, this isn't the only exciting construction project in the neighborhood. The Clarendon Hill redevelopment is also underway. So I just want to provide some brief information about that. These are 2 separate projects. The Clarendon Hill redevelopment is led by a separate coalition of partners that you can see here on this slide. But I do want to assure people that our project construction team is in touch with the Clarendon Hill redevelopment team. Given the proximity of these 2 projects, we do want to make sure that both projects are able to move forward efficiently, and also bear in mind the impact on the neighborhood. If folks are interested in learning more about the Clarendon Hill redevelopment project, clarendonhill.org is a great resource. You can follow the path here for as in information and construction updates. They also have a contact us form. If you have any particular questions, that is our recommendation for getting additional info on the Clarendon Hill project. In terms of like our project here, and staying up to date with the latest info as construction progresses, there are really two resources that I want to call folks' attention to. The first is Somerville City Alerts. You can sign up for city alerts at somervillema.gov/alerts, and here you'll receive notifications of important pieces of the construction process. So as Rebecca was just talking about, there will be a point in the future where the detour plan that you saw tonight may change a bit depending on the requirements of the work. That is something we would deliver a Somerville City Alert for. You can opt in to receive those via your preferences. So there's phone, text, email, whatever works best for you. And then, like, in addition to construction related information, it's also a good resource to receive kind of crucial updates from the city, such as when we have emergencies, which we haven't had to use up until this point, but we never know when that is on the horizon. So just another good reason to make sure you're signed up for city alerts. Just one final piece I'd add about city alerts: if you've moved in the city over the last couple of years, I would just check to make sure your address in our system is up to date. These messages are geographically targeted. So if you're in the vicinity of our project here, you are going to want to make sure you have your address updated, so you'll get information specifically related to this project. I'm sure any of you are also familiar with our project website. You probably went there to register for this meeting. This will continue to be the home for information as we move forward here. So we'll be posting periodic construction updates, periodic progress reports, and it will also be the home for community meeting presentations such as this. So if you want to refer back to anything you heard tonight, you can check back on this site in the next couple of days, and we should have that up for you as well. Finally, before we get into questions tonight, just wanted to kind of provide some information for getting in touch with us moving forward, the construction team. Definitely the best way to send along questions is at this email here, construction@somervillema.gov. Jesse, Rebecca, and I are all part of a larger group that receives this email. It's just a great way to connect with the project team directly regarding any questions you may have as construction gets underway here. I've also included all of our information here as well in case you have particular conversations that you're interested in continuing. We wanted to provide our email addresses as well. Jesse has also provided his phone number here. If there's anything that comes up that feels particularly time sensitive, Jesse is your best point of contact for getting in touch with the contractor to discuss any particular urgent questions or needs that you might have. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jesse, and we're going to open up the floor for your questions.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Rebecca. That was great. So we will start doing questions. So we ask that you raise your hand. Nick will then unmute you, and we would just kind of go, first come, first serve. The other thing is, so it's now 6:20. We're looking to, conclude this at the latest 7:30. So let's see what we have. So we have two participants with raised hands. Let's see who we have. Hold on a sec. All right, let us start with Carol Rigo.
Carol, you should now be able to unmute.
Hey, Carol,
Can you hear me now?
we can hear you.
All right. I had a couple of questions. One of them is really stupid, but you said this is the first time this contractor's worked in the city. He has
Yep.
worked elsewhere, right?
Yes.
You're not brand new to this.
So, one of the things is our construction, there's multiple projects going out throughout the city. So it's actually kind of exciting when we get a new contractor who comes in who wants to do work in Somerville because they've heard good things about, internally, like how the engineering team works, or, it's not as bad as a reputation could be maybe from another municipality. So it's actually kind of really exciting when we get someone new. But there are a lot of contractors we have that, like, for instance, people doing our Spring Hill work did work for the city 5 years ago, which was nice. I had that, I was here 5 years ago as well, had that relationship with them. But I like getting new people as well.
I have two other questions. I can't tell from looking at that picture scheme if we lose the two-way highway system out to Mass Ave and Alewife, or if it's going to be a single lane.
I'm going to go back in the slide a little bit, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in there.
Oh, in here.
I can't tell from those pictures if it's one lane or it's still going to remain a two-lane highway.
On Powderhouse or on Alewife?
Going towards Alewife, actually both ways.
Lane, and in the Alewife Powderhouse intersection, it will be one lane straight through in both directions, and then one lane turning lanes on Alewife. But outside of the intersection, we'll go back to two lanes.
Okay, so it's possible there'll be some slowdown of traffic in that area.
Yes,
That's what we're hoping for.
Sometimes a little too slow. Any chance of trying to save some of these old trees instead of just destroying them and replanting them elsewhere?
Oh, we saved quite a few of the trees. What's out there now is all the trees that will remain.
So the 6 that got removed, Rebecca, some of those were moved to other locations by DCR, right?
Those were not included in this count. So there were 5 that were planted by DCR that were transplanted to another location, and those were salvaged, but 6 were removed permanently for this project. But what's out there now that are protected, all of those mature trees are remaining.
So we still lost 6 trees.
Yes.
In the process.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's the end of my questions.
Thank you for coming tonight, Carol. Next up, we are going to hear from Ron Newman.
You should now be able to unmute, Ron.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Ron.
Yes, my question, which I also put into the Q&A, is while you're doing the construction, will people still be able to walk and bike on the closed section of Powderhouse Boulevard in order to reach the existing signalized crosswalk?
Great question. And yes, if it's not on that side, then there will be a temporary crosswalk. But yes, it is important that we maintain the sidewalk to pedestrians and bicyclists to get to the other side of Alewife Brook Parkway.
And that signal will remain in place until you put in, the permanent change, so we won't have to Frogger across Route 16. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
All right. Up next, we're going to hear from Jeff Shagnon.
Jeff, you should now be able to unmute.
Hey, thanks for having this meeting, everybody. I appreciate giving your evenings to let us know what's going on. I have a couple questions, but I'll be respectful here and maybe go again at the end. Can you talk about parking during the construction and what's intended after construction for street parking?
So during construction, there will be times of no parking for the construction vehicles and a lot of these utility installs. So I can't speak to like when and exactly where, but just observe the no parking signs that the construction the contractors will be putting out. And then the only on-street parking coming back is what you see on Powder House Boulevard in the white line. That will be resident permit parking. But for that's on Powder House Boulevard.
Is that 4 spots there?
I haven't mapped it out, but yeah, I would say about 4.
And then another question I have is, while they're doing utility work, and have you contacted any utility companies that are going to be updating any lines to the houses along that route? Is that something they'd be interested in or benefit from?
So the utilities are going to be doing, Jeff, are water and sewer, not gas.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, is this opportunity to do drain lines for houses, or is that totally separate?
That would be separate.
Okay. And another question I had for you was, could you go over the signal that's being put in at Powder House and Alewife? Could you confirm that it's not a audible tone signal?
Well, you mean for the pedestrians?
Yes.
The pedestrian signal does have a countdown signal. So like the beep, beep, and then beep, beep, beep. Is that what you mean by audible tone?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that is in the install of this signal system.
Is there an opportunity to revert to a non-audible signal tone?
I'm pretty sure that was in the specifications, but so I'd say at this time, no.
Jeff, are you a direct abutter?
I am. Yeah, I used to live next to one and had to move for sanity's sake.
Oh, geez.
I don't know if I'm super pleased about bringing that right back to my house.
Unfortunately, that's a I'm for the visually impaired, so they know when to cross. That's why that feature is there.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of its use. Thank you. Another question is, living in this area of noticed, due to the winds from all the buildings around it, forces a lot of trash into this triangle area and up into the houses. Who would be managing the space in this water space that might collect things like that? The drainage pond.
That is DCR property, so I would say DCR.
Yeah, they'd be responsible, but same as it's been, the circle forever.
Thank you. And the last thing is, could you speak a little more about the change to make it a no outlet street? What is the white section at the end actually going to look like?
The gray part up at, yes, the dead end is kind of like a raised crossing. So it'll have about a 4-inch grade difference from Alewife Brook Parkway. Mm-hmm. And it'll be like kind of like a berm, but it's 4-inch grade difference, and it's concrete.
Was there intention for signage to like residential only drive through, or?
So up there it says do not enter with an only, and then at the residential on Powder House it's a residential sign.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. Up next, we're going to hear from Emily Nash.
Emily, you should now be able to unmute.
Hello, I'm a resident so my address is currently Alewife Brook Parkway. My family owns the house. And from my understanding, eventually our address would change to Powder House Boulevard. Is that true? Because on all of the like maps that we've been given, it says where our house is. It says Powder House Boulevard.
So what's your current address?
267 Alewife. So
I think we can see it here on this map.
Yes. Well, actually, it's right. We wouldn't be on the residential road. We're technically the first house on Alewife, so the house to our left is Powder House, and all the houses down the street from us are Alewife. So there's been a lot of confusion about what our address is. And even like in the past couple of years, we've gotten mail addressed to 267 Powder House, which doesn't exist. So it's a little bit unsettling to not feel like we know what our address is going to be in the near future.
Sure. So this new residential street, all these houses that are coming off of it will continue to be Alewife Brook Parkway.
So the ones that say new residential road, but my house isn't actually marked on like the screen that we're seeing right now.
Shoot me an email or just shoot the construction and let me look into it. We do an address modification through engineering, and we can look into make sure that you have the correct address that you should have.
Okay, because like on some of these other diagrams that have been shown tonight, like it does say Powder House Boulevard directly in front of where my current address is, but that's awesome. So I'll send an email to clarify that.
Yeah, but regardless, no one's address is changing with the new street.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Emily. Up next, we're going to hear from Gina.
Gina, you should now be able to unmute.
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Gina.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing this. I actually like the design and think it looks really good. My big question is around the 24/7 detour and taking a left onto Broadway in order to kind of loop back around. And I'm sure, as you guys know, taking a left onto Broadway from Alewife is a bit of a nightmare. Are there any plans to put in a left turn signal on that intersection?
So you mean on the existing signal? Like
yeah, because if we're going to route a lot more traffic there, it's actually pretty dangerous.
I can definitely sympathize with you on that, and the traffic engineer also agreed on that. There will be arrow boards, but we cannot change out the signal head. At least that's not part of the scope of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Up next, we're going to hear from Marissa.
Marissa, you should now be able to unmute.
Thank you. So first off, I just want to second that concern that I think Gina just said. I hadn't even thought about that until she mentioned it. But my question is about the new speed bump that's going to go on Powder House. And I know when the speed bumps outside of the school on a little bit further up on Powder House were made, there's been a little bit of backlash on those since they're very, very steep. And I was wondering, is this going to be the same type of speed bump, or will the concerns of those speed bumps be taken into account for this one to still make sure that we can be safe and have that precaution in there, but to make it less harsh on a car?
So I'm not familiar with the one you're talking about. Maybe Jesse, you are, but this is a 3-inch high speed hump, and they're not like a parking lot like speed bump. They are gradual. They're about, I think, 15 feet like long to drive over. So it should be a gradual speed hump.
Okay. All right. The ones that are over by the West Somerville Neighborhood School, I know cars often will almost bottom out on them because they are just so steep. And I know that the residents there tend to hear those cars thudding because they can be quite dramatic. But it sounds like then if this is more gradual, it shouldn't be an issue.
This will be more similar to the ones that we put on Holland Street last year.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Marissa. Next, we're going to hear from Karen.
Karen, you should now be able to unmute.
Hi, you hear me?
Yes, Karen, hi.
Okay. My questions and/or comments piggyback on the two previous comments. One, the speed bump that the previous one was just talking about, they hastily implemented 3 speed bumps from the school down to North Street. They did a lousy job, and they were going to come back and shave them or do something, and they never did. And that's what she's referring to. I live 4 houses down from one of the speed bumps, and all night long I hear cars bottoming out. So that's been a valid concern of ours on the street for the last few years. So I had the same question about the speed hump that's going to be on this new section leading down to the light, if it's going to be the same, and if they're putting a speed bump, is that an opportunity to fix the ones they did on the rest of Powderhouse Boulevard? So that's my question.
Sure, Karen. Like we said, this will be a much more gradual speed hump that like the ones on Holland Street than the original ones on Powderhouse. This contract would not focus on what's already been done on Powderhouse, but we can definitely share your feedback. I'm sure other people's feedback about the ones that are currently on Powderhouse Boulevard to make sure they're reviewed by the mobility team to make sure they are the correct height.
If the city would do something about that, that would be really lovely. And my other question goes back to if they're not going to change the light, if you have to take a left onto Broadway from Alewife Brook Parkway, that's a crash waiting to happen. So if they can't do anything about the signal during high traffic hours, are they going to put some sort of officer there or any sort of mediation to help that along? Was my question not clear?
Oh no, it's clear. I just didn't know if
okay.
Ticket. There won't be it's at least not planned right now for a police detail. It's be there 24/7. No.
So it's fun for yourself.
Yes, at the moment, yes.
Okay.
But Karen, one of the things we do once construction gets underway, we look to see if there are issues that arise. And if we find that we need to have a police detail at that location, we will discuss that internally and make that decision. But, there's never a situation where we go, everything's perfect. Construction is always evolving. We're trying to make it as safe as possible.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Karen. And we're going to hear now from Emily Carlson.
Emily, you should now be able to unmute.
Great, thank you. I'm really excited about this redesign, especially the bike lanes. As someone who cycles around this area, it's very scary to go around that rotary. I had a question about the new residential road on Alewife Brook Parkway. Will there be off-street parking available there?
No, actually, there's no parking on the residential roadway.
Okay, thanks.
Which is the existing condition that it is right now on Alewife Parkway. So we aren't removing parking, we're just not adding parking.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily. Up next, we're going to hear from Scott Smith.
Scott, you should be able to unmute.
Scott, you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, Scott Smith from Arlington, and frequently bike on the Doughboy Field side. I live in that neighborhood, and so this initiative looks great. That's a messed up intersection, as many are along that parkway. But my question is, what sort of traffic analysis have you done? Because this is a pretty major reconfiguration on a road that has a lot of traffic. And, I think slowing the traffic is great, but, creating permanent diversions to North Street or streets in Arlington, maybe not so much. So, what sort of analysis has been done along those lines?
Sure. You may have missed that earlier part of the presentation where we kind of talked about this has been a 2-year process. Yeah. Discussing internally, outreach to the community. We did traffic studies. We don't put a shovel in the ground just out of nowhere. So there's been a lot of analysis to this before making these determinations.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott. I see a bunch of people still have their hand raised that we already spoke to. I'm not sure if you maybe just didn't put down your hands. I can call one of you and we'll see what happens. Carol Rago, do you have another question for us? All right, we got some new people. How about we hear from Colleen Flaherty?
Colleen, you should be able to go ahead and unmute.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I just want to agree with what was said earlier about the way that the traffic is being detoured, a left on going onto Alewife to take a left onto Broadway. And maybe it's because I live on the side of this construction, basically on the other side of the West Somerville School. And I'm just looking at it from a standpoint of Stop and Shop. So people are going to have to go down Pothouse Boulevard to take a left onto Alewife, to take a left into Stop and Shop. And even if you did that today, there is a double line. So you can't take a left technically into Stop and Shop. So I'm just thinking commercial wise and business wise, if the flow of traffic would probably be wiser to go the other way, because this looks like it's taking the traffic out of the city rather than helping the people that are in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically it.
Yeah, Colin, we can look at that. I mean, you know, Broadway's two ways. So, I mean, you could get the Stop and Shop going the other way as well. But, you know, this is good feedback that we're getting about that left turn.
Right. I mean, I guess, is North Street a one-way? Maybe that's what I'm getting confused at. No. The yellow lines that are on North Street pushing towards Powder House, does that mean that's a one-way?
No, the yellow is just the
okay.
detour.
I thought this was a rotary circle thing. Like this
Oh,
is slow
no,
traffic.
No.
It's just the detour for people traveling southbound on Alewife. You can't turn left on the Powder House, so you have to follow the yellow.
Okay, but you can go up North Street and take a right on Broadway. All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Colleen. Next, let's hear from Meg DiMaggio.
Meg, you should be able to go ahead and unmute.
Hi, how are you? I live on Bailey Street, and my partner and I were just wondering about, given during the construction and after that, you know, since North Street is going to be probably more heavily trafficked than usual, it can get pretty bad just with potholes and things like that. Do you know if there's any plan to repave any of North Street?
So North Street is in, I believe, our 5-year plan. It's not going to be included as this project, but we have our other project that Rebecca actually manages, which is our sidewalk and paving improvement. And I believe North Street is in our next 5 years or so.
Okay, gotcha. But it could end up being after the work is done.
Yeah, I don't see it happening in conjunction, just also worrying about, you know, too much construction in one area is not great for the residents.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Meg. Let's hear from Judith.
Judith, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, so I can see a lot of thought to this, and I'm gonna corroborate what several other people have said about that left turn onto Broadway. What is going to happen? I have two questions. What is going to happen to the people on Powder House who want to get to Alewife and turn left? So going the other direction.
So
where you take it, Rebecca.
So you mean going on Powder House and going on Alewife?
Yeah, turning left or right onto Alewife from Powder House during construction.
So during construction, you can go on Powder House in the one direction in this traffic management plan. It's just the, I guess, southbound Powder House will be closed, but you can go northbound Powder House.
I'm not sure what that means.
So if you're on North Street and you want to go on Powder House towards Alewife Brook Parkway, you can do that.
Okay, and then can I go left or right on Alewife Brook Parkway?
You'd have to go, yeah, around the rotary to the right and then go and follow the regular rotary.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you. And then the other question was, you said that there was a picture of this end of Powder House where it's bumping into North Street, and said that there were 4 on-street parking spaces. Are there other parking spaces on the rest of Powder House Boulevard?
On-street parking? No, what you see in this picture is the only on-street parking.
All the way to Powder House Circle? Square? The other direction?
Between North Street and Alewife Parkway, yes.
No, the other direction on Powder House. Between North Street and College Ave.
That is not in the scope of this project, so no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we're not eliminating any parking outside of
this little spot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Got me confused there for a second.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Judith. We're going to hear now from Annabelle.
Annabelle, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate the information. I'm concerned that though you're not taking it seriously, the difficulty there will be in making a left turn from Alewife onto Broadway, and how much of how dangerous that could be. I mean, the idea that you're not going to install a different traffic light really concerns me. I think the volume of traffic really demands that you change the traffic light to accommodate a left turn onto Broadway. And I'm really surprised that that's not in the plans.
So I appreciate that comment.
If you spend any time at that intersection looking at the amount of traffic, and then taking into consideration that there's going to be a sudden increase in left turns, it does demand some adjustment to the traffic light.
Sure. So I absolutely appreciate that comment, and it's obviously been a comment that's been said multiple times this evening. You know, the reason we have these meetings is so that we can get these comments from the people who live in this neighborhood. So if there's something that we haven't thought of, it's right in our face. So we're going to go back to our project team and say, hey, this is the feedback we got. We need to make some adjustments.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's already a bad turn.
All right. Next up, we're going to hear from Kathleen Evans.
Kathleen, you should now be able to unmute.
Thank you. Sorry, is somebody else still talking to? I just wanted to first say about the speed bumps in response to earlier comments. I live at the corner of Powder House and North Street, and I too hear all of the cars bottoming out. It's because they're going so excessively fast that, you know, any additional traffic, like rather than making it easier for cars to go so fast, I would appreciate any additional traffic calming measures. The other thing is, in cars going down Powder House towards Alewife Brook Parkway hit the last speed bump. They see the green or the yellow and they accelerate like all get out, and hundreds of kids go through that intersection every day, particularly at times when there's a lot of solar glare. So anything you can do to make that intersection safer for the dramatic volume of pedestrians crossing would be really great. And then my other question is just, I did hear from the crews who are out here just kind of penciling things out, that they're digging up the first 4 to 5 feet of my front yard and moving the sidewalk again. I just didn't know if there's plans to just sort of, I asked them about it just because I was out there. I just didn't know if there was any like notices going to residents who are going to have their property dug up, just about timing so that we can move the significant amount of plants that are there.
Yeah, absolutely, Kathleen. You know, do you live at the corner?
I do. I live right at the corner, so at the north corner of that like triangle spot. Yep.
When we had our last construction meeting, which was a week ago, your property was brought up by the contractor being like, we have this interesting situation come up. So we are aware of this, and we will let you know when they're actually going to be doing construction. there. And there will also be flyering the neighborhood.
Okay.
Well.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And also, any residents who have any questions, our construction emails there. You can, call me directly, or you can even tweet at me. I run the Somerville Infrastructure account for those who don't know, and we can get you some answers.
Perfect. That's good to know. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen. Still, a lot of people who still have their hands up who've already spoken, but I see that our city councilor has a question. Let's unmute Judy.
Thanks, Jesse. A couple of things. One, I want to reiterate two comments already. One was the last one we heard around that intersection of Powder House and North Street. It is one of the ones that is not currently covered by a crossing guard, both before and after school, mostly because it's a secondary location in our kind of crossing guard prioritization list in the city, and we don't have enough to cover our primary locations. If there's anything this team can do to move that into a primary location and advocate for some safety measures there, I agree that I've seen hundreds of kids use that intersection after school. It freaks me out, watching cars fly through that intersection. So I think that that's one to pay particular attention to, and especially because the number of kids using it. And then the second one I want to reiterate is the Broadway left turn. It's tough now. I think it'll get harder, and so I don't know if that traffic signal is DCR controlled or if we have anything to do with it, but even if it's a temporary change and we can revisit the permanent change, I think that's an important one to look at from this team. One more thing I wanted to add in terms of safety, particularly for pedestrians, is there's a crosswalk between Clarendon Hill Towers and Stop and Shop. So kind of the end of where that arrow is on the screen. That is very, very frequently used by lots of people, but in particular by folks who live at the towers, many of whom either have kids or are seniors with mobility issues. It is already an intersection that is in need of some serious safety measures, traffic calming, something, which I've voiced that concern multiple times to our mobility team. But right now there's a flashing yellow, which is confusing. And then there's one of those pedestrian, watch for pedestrian signs in the middle of the street that gets knocked over by the stop and shop trucks probably daily. And so I'm frequently putting it through on requests to get it back on there, because it's the one thing I can count on that will slow a car down. So as you're looking again at safety measures, if we're sending more cars down Broadway, that intersection or that crosswalk is going to get more unsafe for people who really, are already vulnerable users of the crosswalk. So I just wanted to note that here in terms of this construction plan.
Yeah, no, Councilor, absolutely. This is something we will take into account and speak to our construction team, our traffic engineer. So we want to make sure that we are, even though our work is in the intersection, we want to make sure that, how it affects the rest of the neighborhood, it's not negative. All right, so I still see all the same people with their hands up. So I'm going to lower everyone's hands. And if you do have a question, re-raise your hand, please. So we'll do Jeff Shagnon.
Hey, thanks for clicking back on me. I had two follow-up questions to the things I had brought up earlier. For the signal noise, the audible pedestrian crossing, can you confirm that it's going to be on demand where someone pushes it and it would happen? It's not part of the cycle with the changing lights?
I believe it's on demand. I could look more into that for you, Jeff, and email you if you'd like.
Sure, yeah, I'll send you a message. Thank you.
Perfect.
And the other comment was, you mentioned earlier that the parking isn't being reduced, and I believe it is, because even on this image you have here, the red line that's drawn, there's parking along that whole side of the road. And there's also, I think, a few more spots currently on the opposite side of the road. And I think I have some pretty strong concerns about having to already park on the street, and the addition of Clarendon Hill, bringing in hundreds of residents who maybe they have parking internally, but they're visitors. I'm not looking forward to walking to Conwell to park on or to live on Alewife. Is there anything that can be done to add more spots?
So the parking we were talking about earlier was the Alewife Brook Parkway, where we are not removing any parking because there wasn't any to begin with. There are some spots that are being removed on Powder House for the construction project. But we do retain these 4, and there also are houses that have their own driveways. And if they didn't have driveways, we could actually put more parking in, but we hope that people are using their driveways to make better use of this street.
But if there is no driveway parking, the street's the only resource, and what you have on the opposite side of Powder House is all parking, and now it's a bike lane with grass on either side. So we lose all that parking on that side.
Correct. There are some spots that are being removed for safety.
Is there any way to add parking to the new street?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. All right. Carol Rego is back.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Carol.
Okay, with the picture that said a 24/7 detour, is that a permanent detour, the Broadway to North Street? Are we ever going to be able to access Powder House without having going down Broadway?
So, Nick, I don't know if you want to go back, but that detour will be in place. It's not permanent, but it is about a couple of months duration. I spoke to the contractor today. He believes it should be through, it will begin in a couple of weeks and then go through until the end of summertime.
But it is coming back so that we can go down Powder House from Alewife.
After they finish the construction activity that requires the detour, yeah, they'll be able to open it back up.
Thank you. That was my question.
Thank you, Cheryl. Let's hear from Nick.
Nick, you should be able to go ahead and.
Yep, thank you very much. So my question pertains to the stretch of road of North Street between Broadway and Powder House. So these yellow lines where we're sending the traffic, that stretch is pretty narrow. And then I believe there's parking on the Clarendon Hill apartment side. So during this time, is that going to be made a one-way, or can you at least not allow parking? Because even right now you have to sometimes slow down and wait for the other car to go by to pass. And so I figure with this extra volume is going to be a bottleneck.
So right now that's not planned to make it one way or eliminate parking, but as Jesse mentioned earlier, we'll, observe the situation and see, but, we have a lot of streets. What you just explained was kind of like a yield street, and that is also a safety traffic measure to slow people down. But if as you're saying, the capacity increases, and if it begins to be an issue, yeah, we'll monitor and see what we can do.
Okay, and it just to follow up again, there was a lot of conversation about the speed humps. I actually bottom out a lot on the speed humps, and it's not because I'm going fast. I have a very low car, and every time I'm bottoming out on the Powder House one. So I think 3 inches, what you described, would be good. But I just wanted to clarify that not everybody is speeding when they're going over there and they're bottoming out. Okay, thank you very much. Great job.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. Next up, let's hear from Alessandra.
Alessandra, you should be able to go ahead and unmute.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much for this. I'm really excited about this intersection project. The design looks fantastic. The one question that I have is, I'm just thinking like long-term about the $100,000 that are earmarked for the traffic study on the Broadway and Alewife Brook Parkway intersection. I'm assuming that study won't be done until this construction is over, so that we're not getting maybe interference from the redirected traffic from the detour.
Wow, Alessandra, yeah. I just found that information out. I'm impressed.
Well, great. Someone did their homework.
I like remember Jesse, you just found that out like hours ago. Yeah, they wouldn't do a traffic study during construction. They know that construction will impact that study. So I think they will wait for that. Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's hear from Ian.
Ian, you should be able to go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. Thank you. This presentation was great. Lots of good questions. One question I had that I don't think was addressed yet was I sometimes bike. So I live on West Adams Street. I can see my house from here. And I sometimes bike down North Street to Broadway to then get into Davis Square or Cambridge or that direction. I have raised the topic as part of the bike network plan of making Curtis a contraflow from Powder House to Broadway to then connect into the new Holland, well, partially completed Holland Street bike lanes. Is there any chance that we could look at fast tracking that so cyclists don't have to go on North Street between Powder House and Broadway, at least for the duration of this construction? Because it's going to be really gnarly, tight, and just a lot of unhappy people in big hulking cars that are just going to want to get through that light. And I really don't want to be there.
I mean, we can look into that, but that's definitely kind of outside of the scope of this project.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. It's more just, this is the first time I've seen this detour presented. And if I had known this 2 months ago, I would have been asking that question 2 months ago.
Okay.
Food for thought. There's room on Curtis. It's no different than Hancock or any of those. So I'm happy to bring that up tomorrow night at the bike committee meeting. See what they say there too.
Yeah, I think that's a good avenue. Start there, and they always follow up with us. You know, all the interdepartmental mobility engineering, we all talk together. So bring it up there, see what they think.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Next up, let's hear from Megan Franey.
Megan, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for putting together this meeting. It has been super informative. I live on Conwell, and I do have a question, but I just want to reiterate two things. First, what the councilwoman said about the crosswalk on Broadway from the Stop and Shop. I walk there a lot, and I see a lot of elderly people with, either wheelchairs or walkers. And with this left turn situation, someone's going to get hit. Like, people are already going to be agitated that they're being detoured, and I think it's going to be dangerous. The second, what Jeff said about the parking on Powder House Boulevard by the Clarendon Hill Apartments, there are probably 12 to 15 cars there right now. And it's going to be, where are they going to go? That's a question I have. But the main question is, the lanes, because you're putting in bike lanes, are we going to lose car space? Like, is the lane on Powder House going to be bigger, or are we losing like car space?
So the
Like
travel lanes will be 10 feet wide, which is a pretty standard lane. That's not really that narrow. If does that answer your question?
I guess. I just want to know if they're going to be smaller, because when I have to take that left onto North Street, like, we live in Boston, people get annoyed. So I just wanted to make sure, like, I'm not going to get hit or like rear-ended when I have to take a left onto North Street, because someone can't get around me to go straight down Powder House and then hit all the speed bumps and bottom out because they're going 55 miles an hour.
Sure. One of the things we do when we go through the design process, we meet with Chief Breen, and we talk about, like, if we are going to make roads smaller than what they are, we want to make sure that a fire truck can get down there. So that's kind of, the standard we go by. So we don't do anything smaller than the width of a fire truck.
Okay.
So if you think of it that way.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thanks for this meeting. It's been really good.
Thanks, Megan. Let's hear from my friend Wilma Ba.
Wilma Ba.
Should now be able to unmute.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So fundamentally, like, do you know approximately how many people are on this call?
At the height of it, we had 73.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Was it like detailed information about the approximate timeline of the project?
So we're looking at about a year and a half.
Got you. Yeah, and then just this is a comment. I think given that it's like ways, out, it continuous communication and engagement is really going to be key as we move ahead, so that is something I just want to put that on your plate. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Will. Karen, do you have another question for us?
Karen, you should be able to unmute if you have another question.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just had a quick question. Are you eliminating the pedestrian light across from the playground?
Which playground?
On Alewife.
On Alewife. Kind of diagonally across from Stop and Shop? That playground.
I think that's outside of our scope.
No, it's there.
It's there.
Nope, it's not on that slide.
No,
It would be kind of where that circle is, where there's an arrow in the green space. See where it says Clarendon Hill Apartments? And then kind of like 11 o'clock from there.
Oh, like
there's
the North
pedestrian.
Street, the North Street playground right there?
No, not on North Street, on Alewife Parkway.
Where the baseball field is, the greenery.
Yeah. There's a pedestrian light there.
No, I mean, our only work is in this intersection at Powder House and Alewife Parkway. This one.
There. This is it. It's right there.
So you're leaving the pedestrian light that's in between the slide you just showed me with the new traffic signal and the intersection of Powder House of Alewife and Broadway.
Correct. We're only working on the intersection. We're installing a new traffic signal at Alewife Brook at Powder House.
Okay, that was my question. I use that light all the time. That was it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Karen. Will, do you have another question?
Oh, no, sorry. I should have put my hand down. I'm sorry.
All right. All right. That seems to be, does anyone else have another question? If not, we can wrap up for the evening. Scott Smith.
Yeah, sorry. I threw something into the Q&A. Just a thought is, you may make the direction of Powder House during construction the other way, the detour might become a lot easier. I don't know if that's something you considered. What?
Like
go up the hill rather than down the hill.
Like a temporary, yeah.
Just a thought. It may not be a good idea. Just consider it.
Noted. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. All right. Looks like Nick has another question for us.
Nick, you should be able to go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, how you doing? So I'm actually questioning your answer to the crosswalk. So when you were flipping the slides, it was actually an aerial that showed it, and it only looks like it's 20 feet or so from the crosswalk that you're going to put in. So it really doesn't make sense to keep that light and crosswalk there. Nope. There was an aerial shot that I saw. That one.
This one?
See the crosswalk. So look at that green line on the left, and then follow it a little more. You can see the crosswalk there.
Underneath the
right on the parkway, the left.
Yeah, so we're not keeping that.
Okay. Yeah. So you had said earlier that you are. Okay.
Sorry, I
just wanted to clarify because I thought that they were just too close. Okay, thank you.
That's
Karen,
yeah.
Karen caught me off guard with that question. But yeah, if you can see that, like, there's like an overlay over there.
Yep.
That crosswalk's going away. Sorry, Karen.
Well, the the new crosswalk is going to have its own pedestrian signal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Looks like Ian Woolishin has another question.
Ian, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, one more quick thought about that left turn detour. I sometimes go up Powder House to get into West Adams, Conwell area. Usually if I'm coming from like Arlington down Route 3, is there any thought about putting detour signs up there to say like go to Boston Ave and North Street or any of the other cut throughs from the other way? I don't know if that helps everyone, but at least might help the people in the Somerville Medford area that are just trying to get home versus all the way cut through. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it's something we have to see once we get our initial detour in place, and then see what additional signs are needed to keep people from either following it or if there's a bottleneck, trying to figure that out.
Okay. But you guys you're committed to not doing it and walking away from it. You're going to keep looking at it as the project goes. So that makes sense.
And that's how we manage every project in the city.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Scott, do you have another question?
Scott, if you have another question, you can unmute.
Sorry. Nope.
All right. I think we're going to call it then. Just want to say, we thank you all for being here this evening. And, we do these meetings to get the feedback. And what we heard, most importantly, is that turn from Alewife onto Broadway. So we're going to look at ways to kind of make that safer. We'll discuss with our traffic engineer. We'll discuss with our mobility team. We'll discuss with our contractors. Also, once construction really starts, if you have concerns, please email us at construction@somervillema.gov. That goes to all of us, and we will follow up with you. And with that, we're going to call it a night. Thank you all for being here.